Alrighty. My name is Tasheila Williams-Townsend. I currently serve as a career counselor in the University Career Center, and we will be continuing the discussion of developing that perfect marketing tool, that resume. Okay, so we are currently located in 303 Mary Martin Hall. You can currently actually come and see us via Zoom during our drop-in hours. There will always be a career counselor on call. Our drop-in hours currently are Monday through Friday, 10 to 3. But if you need any additional services or any help outside of those hours, you can actually still make an individual appointment with the counselor. Okay, so you've talked about the foundation of writing a resume. Probably saw the format of a resume, but now let's discuss the content, okay? Now we'll first start with discussing the differences between a resume and a CV. A resume is something that you've probably heard of before. This is something that you probably had to have in high school. You probably used this or submitted this when applying for different types of maybe scholarships for college. Maybe even when you apply for colleges, they may have asked you for a resume. Now, a resume is usually 1 to 2 pages, okay? It demonstrates usually why you are specifically qualified for a particular position, okay? So usually on a resume, all we're going to include is information that is directly related to a specific position that you may be applying for, okay? Now, a resume can be used to obtain internships, practicums, seasonal jobs, part-time, full-time positions, and even leadership positions in different organizations, okay? But now the difference between that resume and that curriculum vitae is sometimes the number of pages. So usually a curriculum vitae, the page, you're normally going to have at least 3 pages starting off with your curriculum vitae, and usually ends up being a lot more, okay? Oftentimes we'll see that the curriculum vitae is used when we are looking at positions for higher education. So if you are pursuing a teaching position, a research position, or any type of administrative position in higher education, they're more than likely going to ask you for a curriculum vitae or a CV. Okay. Now, a curriculum vitae is a comprehensive biographical body of your experience. Okay. This can include information about your past projects you've worked on. It will include information about research projects you may have worked on, different projects within your program, but it includes everything. A curriculum vitae is used as a supporting document for grant or contract funding. And then, of course, it can be also a possible requirement for an annual review for different types of promotions. Now, one thing that we do want to keep in mind when we're thinking about writing our resume is that it is a marketing tool to sell your skills to an employer with the goal of setting an interview, okay? So that means that you have to get the interview, so you're gonna have to make them want you through that document, okay? Companies are using an applicant tracking system, which filters out about 70 to 80% of applicants, okay? So that means if they're filtering out that information, you wanna make sure that everything in your resume is right, everything is how it needs to be so that you aren't one of those ones that get kind of pushed out of that system, okay? Now we do use an applicant tracking system within our office. Our applicant tracking system that we currently use is called Quincia, and we'll talk about it a little bit later in a future slide. But Quincia actually uses artificial intelligence to give you feedback on your resume, and pretty much it allows you to pretty much be seen by the people who are hiring and making decisions. Okay, now I also want you to keep in mind that employers are going to spend on average about 6 to 15 seconds looking over your resume for the first time, okay? So you want to make sure that accuracy, that everything that you've done, that we create strong bullet points, that we put all of our information so that it is easily readable. We want to make sure that all of that is visible, okay? Okay. And one thing, the most important thing to keep in mind is that although a resume and a CV, they aren't legal documents, honesty is very important. You always want to stay transparent. So don't plagiarize, all right? And do not lie on your resume, okay? Now, where do we begin, okay? The master list. Always want to start with your previous employment, and it's almost like word mapping, okay? When we think about previous employment, what were those dates? Do you have specific addresses? Okay. What about managers, supervisors, past team members, past coworkers, phone numbers, and then different contributions that you actually did on that that particular position, or other people that you can reach out that you actually work with that position, okay? When we think about all of our skills and all of our attributes, do you have specific examples that you can use, okay? What about the addresses? Okay. When we think about our addresses in the past 10 years, do you know where your current or where your past positions were located? Okay. And then when I think about addresses too, you want to make sure that the addresses are like, if you are going to use your address on your resume, just not required anymore, make sure that it is an address where you're actually going to receive documentation or where you're going to receive mail. Okay. Now, as for education, things that you want to include, of course, are the dates that you actually receive the education. Okay. GPA is sometimes required for certain majors, not for all majors, but it is something that you can add if you like. Now, you can add honors, you can add scholarships, courses, and projects all under your education. Okay. Now, organizations, what contributions did you add to that organization? Were you in a leadership role? What role did you play? And then do you have any certifications that you can discuss? Okay. Certifications that maybe have come with your program, certifications that will make you more marketable. All right. Now, once we have our master list, okay, what we want to do is we want to know our audience. The company, all right, what is their main focus? Do they have any new initiatives? What is the position? What are the responsibilities of that position? What skills are needed? And what verbiage are they using? Okay. And then you want to know yourself. All right. What skills do I offer for this position? How does my experiences that I have currently, or that I have my past experiences, how does that qualify me for this specific position? Okay. Now, what we go by are NACE competencies. And NACE, the National Association of Colleges and Employers, have said that there are 8 competencies that students should have when they are entering the workforce. Now, each of these competencies, all right, you earn them in different ways throughout your college experience. So we are able to take these competencies and find ways to actually add them and show it through experience on your resume. Okay, now, one thing we do not recommend is for students to use templates. Sometimes when we use a template, when it's downloaded on a different site, it's a little bit off, the margins may be off, it may format it differently, okay? So what we're gonna do instead is actually use a format, okay? Now, a format, we usually are going to use one full page. It's usually ideal for a resume, but you can have 2 pages, okay? Okay, it seems like my technology cut off again, but you can't have 2 pages for your format, okay? You always want to stay within a 0.75 to 1 inch margins and only use black ink and no graphics, okay? Try to still keep the font size to 11 to 12 point, professional point. You always want to use bullets. You want to bold, you want to use italics, and try to use some caps there too. Now, with a resume, okay, always remember that your past experiences are in reverse chronological order, okay? So we want to know what you're currently doing first and then work your way backwards that way, okay? Now, always remember to always save as a PDF before submitting, okay? And that way there can be no changes made that way, all right? Always print, okay, on white or ivy resume paper. And always remember that we do resume printing for you within the Career Center also. Okay. Now, the way that we're going to read our resume, we're always going to read from top to bottom and from left to right, okay? Now, the most important information and the most important sections are going to be at the top and to the left, okay? This is going to include like your titles, your headings, and then those main, the information about the positions that you currently have, okay? Now, your less important information in your sections are going to be at the right and the bottom, okay? Now, on this specific example, you can actually see that they're going to list the education first and then the experience, okay? Now, everything under the education and experience, they're going to be optional sections and optional headings that you can actually use, okay? But the ones that you have to have, again, are going to be the education and the teaching experience. And as you can see how it's formatted is at the top and to the left-hand side, okay? Now, when we look at the different sections and we look at the content of the sections, okay, that's what we want to pay attention to, okay? When we think about our contact information, okay, now you're more than welcome to use a mailing address. You do not have to use a mailing address. It's really good to have at least a good, strong email address that you can use, okay? Now, when we include this information, we want to make sure that if we are going to use any of the contact information, that it is up to date, okay? Now, we have to think that this is the contact information that we are giving companies that we are applying for different types of positions. So if they can't find us, then they can't offer us a position, right? So we always want to include at least a phone number, okay? A phone number, a good email address, and if you feel comfortable giving a physical mailing address, you're more than welcome to do that, okay? Now, these are just different examples of different ways that you can set up the contact information section, okay? Again, it doesn't necessarily have to be this way. This just gives you a good way, good examples of how to start that, okay? Now, we always want to portray a professional image, okay? When we think about an email, I don't know how many times I've actually seen emails that are actually like hotstuff@hotmail.com, okay? So again, it's not as acceptable, okay? So if we can, create a professional email, maybe just your first and your last name, at Gmail, at Yahoo, any of those things, okay? Now, it is okay to use your Auburn email address, but okay, I always say have a backup email because sometimes your Auburn account, like if you're gone for so many years, that account won't be accessible anymore, okay? So always make sure that you have a backup email account that you can actually use for your resume. Now, with your voicemail. Now, once upon a time, when I was younger, and I won't tell my age, hopefully, we used to make voicemails, and the voicemail used to be like, "Hey, thanks for calling," and then we like pretend like we answered the phone, and we hang up, of course, right? However, of course, that's not professional. A professional voicemail is something that we should always keep, all right? And the professional voicemail is just one where we're stating our name, we're stating our phone numbers, all right? And then we're, again, avoiding all background noise, okay? Once upon a time, ringback tones used to be a thing on your voicemail. Now, those are not a thing. Those aren't considered as professional. So if you do have any of those things, all right, where you're playing a joke on your friends when they call, definitely make your, go ahead and make your voicemail be professional, okay? Now, pictures are not needed on your resume. And with the new applicant tracking system, it really may disqualify you as a candidate, okay? So do not include professional headshots or anything else on your resume. If you do want to use a professional headshot or anything like that, then definitely set up a LinkedIn account, and that way you can use your professional headshot there and still include all of your past experiences and your professional information. Okay, now moving along to our section of education, all right? This is a really, really important section because this starts your experience, okay? Now, the thing with education is we're still going to use reverse chronological order, okay? So that means that we're going to go with the newest to the oldest. So if you are in a PhD program right now, okay, that program is going to be listed first, then it's going to be your master's degree program, then it's going to be your bachelor's degree, okay? Now, when we do the list, all right, the information that is going to be needed, all right, we want to know what school you graduated from, okay? Once you get into college, right, we don't want to know so much about your high school information. We want to know what you're currently doing in college, all right? So what I like to think, all right, and like to tell students is that you almost get, it's like a clean slate. Okay, so where you once had your high school information there, you're now going to replace that with your college stuff. Okay, so your college involvement, all of that good stuff. All right, so again, when we include our education, we want the school name, we want the city and state where the school was located, the degree title, and then the grad month and year, okay? And you can actually see the example right here to the right, okay? Education is Auburn University from Auburn, Alabama, Bachelor of Science, Nursing, and then May 2014. They actually included their minor there and also their GPA on a 4.0 scale. Now, again, looking at GPA, it is industry specific, okay? Now, some industries do want you to include the GPA on your resume. Some industries do not require you to have your GPA on your resume. I always think that is good practice to include it, especially if you have a very high GPA. I think it's always good to add. Okay, now a rule of thumb. Here we go, is do not use high school information after the first year of undergrad, okay? By then, you should have joined different types of organizations and you have new information that you can actually add to your resume or your CV, okay? Include any institution attended for study abroad or degree earned, okay? So your study abroad, like if you did any study abroad opportunities while you were here at Auburn University, be sure to include that information also. Now, we're getting down to the experience level, okay? Now, with the experience, okay, we want to think about everything that we've done. And again, think about it in terms of past, remember, don't include high school information after the first year. So we want to think about new experiences that we have, okay? If you're a freshman now, it's time to start, kind of thinking about things that we can do to start getting involved with on campus to help us gain that experience, okay? So with this section, okay, we definitely want to provide employer information, okay? Who was that employer? What was the city and state of this employer? What was your position and what was your title? What about your start and your end month and then the year of employment, okay? If it is a current position, what you're going to use is just the word present, okay? Now, just as with education, your education section, we use reverse chronological order also to put our experiences on our resume, okay? So that just means that we want to see your most recent area of employment first, and then you list everything else below, again, but in reverse chronological order, okay? The number of bullet points does not need to be consistent for all experiences. So for example, if on one experience you had 3 tasks that you that was your main job there in that particular position, but let's say in your most current position, maybe there are 5 or 6 bullet points of different tasks that you had, that is totally fine. It does not have to be the same across the board, okay? You do not have to provide your supervisor name or the contact information of that supervisor. A lot of times what employers will do is ask you for a reference list or a list of references, okay? And then you will provide your references there, okay? Now, again, let's just look at the example together for the professional experience and how you can format that, okay? As you can see, they work as a transportation department intern, okay? And they are going to actually label what that position was. They were an intern there. So if it was an internship, if it was a practicum, if you shadow any of that information, that's what you're gonna put. What was your position at this particular organization or company, okay? Of course, you're gonna put the dates that you actually worked, and then again, the city and state of the company. Now, when we look at bullet points, okay, what you're going to see is that we want to have a very strong verb and then a very strong description of the actual task that you did there, okay? Now, when we think about experience, right, and we have I'm sure, a lot of different types of experience. I know for myself, going through college, I worked maybe retail, I worked at different types of grocery stores, things like that. However, those things weren't necessarily relevant to my the positions that I was applying for. So what I actually had to do, all right, is I actually had to look at the posting, right? And I had to think about, and again, do word mapping and think about how the task that I did during my previous positions were related to the position that I was applying for, okay? So again, we wanna think about relevant job experience, okay? If you don't have any relevant experience right now, what are things that you can be doing right now that can help you earn that relevant experience to add to your resume, okay? So again, relevant experience, your sales associate, um, putting again where the city and state, and then again listing a very strong verb, very strong description of the job task. Okay. Again, another example. Okay. Now, creating that very strong bullet point is very important, okay? Because what we're wanting to do is include the action verb, yes. We want to include the description of the task, all right? And then the result, the reason, and the how, all right? So what we want to do is we want to focus on the skills and abilities that are needed for the new position, okay? So that goes back here where we start to think about the relevant experience, okay? So if you are an education major, let's use this as an example, your relevant experience that you should be earning while you're in college is possibly going out to elementary schools, maybe going to high schools, whatever area that you're wanting to actually gain that position, but you're wanting to now start volunteering in those areas, okay, to gain that experience. You want to pay attention to verb tense and usage. Okay, so what we mean by this is if it is a current job, right, or current position that you're doing, then you want to use a present tense. If it is a past position, right, then we want to use past tense. Now remember, the applicant tracking system will catch these things, okay? And remember, it will kick it out if it's not accurate, okay? So we want to make sure that our resume, that everything on it is accurate and that it passes through the applicant tracking system, okay? Now, we want to write detailed and concise statements, but we want to limit that to 1 to 2 lines. So how are we able to do that, okay? So when we think about it, all right, the action verb, what were you doing in that position, okay? Were you learning? Were you contributing? Were you coordinating? Were you actively doing something? Okay. And then give me the description of the task. So, for example, in my position now, I collaborate with other colleges on campus to provide students with with career services. Okay. So I gave my action verb. So I'm collaborating. The description of my task is that I am collaborating with individuals or other colleges on campus. And the result of me collaborating is for us to provide students with career services to pretty much help them once they leave Auburn University. Okay. Now, you want to customize, all right, to the specific job by using keywords and industry specific terminology. So this is going to take a little research, okay? So that's knowing who your audience is, okay? Researching the company, knowing what the job duties are, knowing what the job tasks are, okay? And then try to avoid personal pronouns such as I, my, me, or we, okay? Now, education and past work experience are required. Okay, they are required sections that you have to have on your resume because how else would an employer know that you are qualified for the position? Okay, but everything else, all right, on your resume is an option. Okay, technology skills, leadership experience, different involvement, different honors, different awards, different certifications. Again, all of those are optional. You are more than welcome to add that to your resume, especially if it is related to the position and it is relevant. And I think that is a great thing for you to actually add to your resume. Okay, but some really some sections that you really may want to start thinking about, even if you don't have the experience now, it's a good time to start thinking about it, is how can I earn that leadership position, okay? Or how can I earn leadership experience? What about different types of professional accomplishments? What are things that I can be doing now to do professional development? Are there any conferences? Are there anything that you as a student can actually attend now, whether it be study abroad, anything like that, that can actually be added to your resume? Now, remember, when we first started, we talked about those NACE competencies, okay? And one of those things is leadership. They want you to be able to show leadership skills. They want you to be able to show those critical thinking skills. So I want you to start thinking about things right now that you can do that will help you earn those different types of skills, okay? Now, again, involvement is optional, but involvement shows, again, gives you a different type of experience, because not only were you a student on campus, but you were a student that were involved in different organizations that can show time management skills there, okay? But it also allows you to be able to network and meet new people. I think that, being involved also can help you gain those leadership skills that are going to be needed, cross-cultural fluency skills that are going to be needed to earn those NACE competencies, but also allow you to expand and expound on your resume and make you more marketable that way. Okay. Now, when we think about curriculum vitae, okay, some things that are optional that you can add to your curriculum vitae are your publications. Okay, have you written any journal articles? Okay, any types of articles? Have you worked on any research? Okay, I'll have a lot of PhD students, a lot of graduate students who will have different types of research assistantships where they assist other faculty members on campus with research. You can actually add that information to your CV. Okay, and again, it makes you more marketable, but it shows your area of experience, and it shows, past experience in research areas in which you've worked on. Okay, again, presentations. Have you presented? Have you presented at different conferences? Have you presented within your department? Any of these things, they can actually be added to your CV. Okay, again, we want to take a look at your resume or your CV. Again, Quincia is our new applicant tracking system that we use, okay? What Quincia does, it uses artificial intelligence to review your resume instantly and give you feedback to make it optimized for applicant tracking software, okay? Now, this allows your resume and your CV to be seen by people who are making hiring decisions, okay? You can also use Quincia to practice your interview skills. And where you can find this information is on our main website. What we like for you to do is actually take your resume and your CV and actually put it through our Quincia system first before you come in for an appointment with us, so that it'll give you pretty much the feedback for you to make. And then we're actually able to look at it, and we are able to give you personal feedback also on different changes that you can make. Now, some things that you really want to leave off of your resume that aren't needed. Anything I say that is subjective, okay? Religion, political affiliation, your salary information, your social security number. You never know whose desk your resume may land on, all right? So any of that personal information, you just don't want them to have. Your photograph is definitely not needed. Again, if you do want to use a professional headshot, then definitely create a LinkedIn profile or create an e-portfolio is a very good way to also display your past experiences and things like that. But we definitely don't want to put it on our resume or our CV. And we want to leave off references also. Usually that is asked within the application, but even if it's not asked in the application, the interviewers, the company, the organization, they will actually ask you or request a reference list, okay? Your birth date is not needed, neither is your marital status, okay? So anything that is personal, that personal information is not needed on your resume. We want to keep it to professional personal, which includes just your past experiences, things like that. Okay. Now, accuracy is key, okay? Misspellings, um, not not capitalizing certain words, capitalizing everything. We want someone, when looking for someone, employers want someone detail oriented, okay? So we want you to pay attention to the small details on the resume to make sure that everything is correct. Remember that applicant tracking software is going to catch everything and kick you out, okay? So if there is a misspelled word on there, if there's a grammatical error, if something is wrong on that resume, you may get kicked out, okay? And we don't want that to happen. So we want to make sure that we are reviewing our resume, that we're having our resumes reviewed by University Career Center and also Quincy, okay? Just to make sure that you are marketable for that position. Now, resume versus cover letter posting. What I like about this particular example is it's almost like word mapping, okay? I love word mapping because it allows me to get my thoughts on paper. When I think about my past experiences, sometimes I may forget a task that I did, but this allows me to actually come up with my adjectives, my characteristics for myself, and come up with the past experiences that I have and the different tasks that I did on those in those particular positions. Now, we are, of course, a part of the Career Services Network on campus. And again, we service all students on campus. So again, feel free to come in and use our services. Our services, again, you can come in and see us for drop-ins Monday through Friday, 10 to 3, using our Zoom services. And there is always a counselor on call, okay? With your resume, always remember, accuracy is key, that you always want to include information such as education, experience, and that other sections are optional, okay? Another rule of thumb to remember when doing your resume is to always, always, always include make sure your contact information is correct, make sure all of your information on your resume is correct, and make sure that you are explaining and describing your experience on your resume, including a detailed action verb, detailed description of what you did, and then the result of that information. If you have any questions, please feel free to come in and see us at the University Career Center.